Hi everybody, Dhaman Mehta here, and thank you for once again joining me on my journey as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. Uh, Not much else to say about this. I know this year has been really slow, but whatever. I try, and I do want to end this sometime before I die, so hopefully this will end soon. But let's dive into these stories, starting with Through the Multiverse, Emiya Shirou by SaintInfernalNeos. And this is it doesn't look like it mainly, or at least it didn't sound like it from the title, because Fate Stay Night has a guy that can travel the universes and goes through stuff. So I assumed it was that. What this is actually like a snippets collection, a bunch of first chapters of various Fate Stay Night crossovers that this author has. That while mildly amusing, didn't really spark much joy for me. The problem here, and the problem I've seen in like a lot of snippet collections, is that it depends how much is there and like what it is. Like I think that I've found snippet collections to be the best, or at least the most entertaining, when it's like various random points throughout the whole thing, not just one single scene. Um, like because if it's just one single scene, then it might as well, it's basically a prompt, and sometimes those could be good. Where here it's like, okay, yeah, these are some slightly interesting prompts, but they don't really do much for me as a reader. Maybe as a writer they would, but as a reader they don't. And especially this one's even less, because like, unlike others where you'll get prompts, or the prompts will be like at least various scenes or like different points, these are all the start of the Holy Grail war, like Shirou's Holy Grail war, and it's just always that, and just that first scene remixed up like 4 or 5 times. So it's just not. It gets repetitive, and it doesn't really show any other engaging moments that show the differences. If you want some inspiration for a Fate Stay Night crossover, give this a look. But for a reader, it's gonna fall off my list. Next is reading Fils de l'Amour, The Lost Hero by Engineer Forever. And this is another of the collabs by Engineer Forever and Bones Boy, where Engineer Forever is making a reading fic of Bones Boy's stories. I believe they've both been on my list before, if you don't, but like both of them write Percy Jackson crossovers. Bones Boy likes to write Naruto crossovers with Percy Jackson, and Engineer Forever writes Harry Potter ones, where the main characters of those are children of the gods, and then they get drawn into the Percy Jackson universe. And then not only did they write those stories, they wrote reaction fics of each other's stories. So this is a reaction fic to the first one, where Naruto is the son of Aphrodite. One thing that's interesting with these is that they wrote multiple stories, right? So Bones Boy's written one where Naruto is Apollo's son, this is Aphrodite's son, and all of the fics regarding their fics, so all of Engineer Forever's reaction fics regarding Bones Boy's fics, all apply in the same timeline, where like the god, so like in this one, the gods just finished reading like I think the first or second book of Apollo, and now they come to this one. So if you skip the other ones in this, there might be some continuity stuff and jokes that you might miss out on. But it's still understandable enough regardless, and works well enough as a reaction fic. The story itself is a pretty basic +1 style crossover, where Naruto just gets added to the cast of the, I believe it's the first Heroes of Olympus book. And reactions are okay, but I just didn't find myself really having a lot of fun or engagement with this one. I think it basically, I found it to be like a B minus C plus kind of story, where it's okay. I just kind of found it to be too casual for an interesting reaction, and it kind of just felt too muted and grew dull over time. It's okay, and if you're just interested, and I think the whole series, like if you're interested in it, works well enough as a reaction thing. It's certainly interesting, but I just didn't find this entry to be that special, so it's gonna fall off my list. Number 3 is The Orange Flash in Westeros, by, I am not going to try to say that name. It's really It's just a face desking of letters. And this is where Naruto, after the events of canon of Naruto and defeating the Jubi, gets sent to Westeros and meets up with Robert and Ned Stark before, right, like a little bit before they become king, and then he ends up like gradually taking over Westeros, like, and becomes king. This story, it's not finished, but it gets to some points. It gets past the War of Five Kings before stopping, and Naruto actually just becomes king. It's a little odd. Like, his power, Naruto's power scaling in this is both strong. He's set up as both super strong and yet super weak, where like he can set up infinite shadow clones that can last forever and go all over the kingdom, and yet in a fight with swords, he will lose and let people die that are right next to him. It's like, what? You're a guy who just beat him out on something. Like, nobody in Westeros should. If these two things don't really match, and it's just like Ned had to die for the sake of the plot, so Ned's going to die. Like, it's kind of stupid how his powers held. Otherwise, this is basically a fix fic with a single, overpowered protagonist solving all the problems in the world, and it's fine for what it is. If you want that, and like I said, it doesn't complete the story, but a lot of stuff does get solved. So if you want it, there's a lot of visual issues with reading it as well, where there's no line breaks, there's no indicators when a scene changes or jumps, so you kind of get lost. And another thing is that the author like ignores huge areas of the things of the story until it's sort of plot relevant, but then doesn't bring it up in a like, basically, we see, like, let's look at Jon Snow. We see Jon Snow at the first like chapter or so, because that's when Naruto is in Winterfell. Then when Naruto follows Ned to thing, we don't hear about Jon Snow again until like the last chapter, where all of a sudden we start getting scenes with Jon with the wildlings coming back over the wall and stuff like that, and then he meets with Sam and a whole bunch of other people who are never introduced. We never knew who they were. We had no setup because we never saw anything with Jon, or we never saw anything of the wall until this 9th chapter, and yet we're just thrown in and just shown these people without any introduction or explanation for who these people are or what is going on. So that I just felt was a little like just not great. Overall, I think there's better Game of Thrones fics out here that are more worth your time. This is gonna fall off my list. Next is Lily's Next Great Adventure by Vance McGill. This is a Harry Potter story where after Lily dies, she meets Death, and then Death is like, hey, your son's gonna get manipulated and stuff, so why don't you go help him? And Death basically gives Lily a new body, or it's described as gives Lily a new body, and then we find out, no, it's really just he grabs all of Lily's memories and just bottles it into a new person that they created to be Harry's friend as they go in. So it's not actually Lily, it's Lily's memories in a random girl's body. Whatever. Okay, fine. The story itself just doesn't get anywhere. It's over 100k words, and we don't even start Hogwarts. It's just all set up that Dumbledore's evil, and the goblins solve the Horcrux problem. I don't have a problem with the concept of like, hey, goblins help and solve Horcruxes, or Dumbledore's evil. I've had multiple stories on this list that are like that. But like I said, like, the story gets nowhere. This story starts on like July 31st of 1991, which is when he would be going to Hogwarts, and we don't get to Hogwarts by September. It doesn't even progress a month. Like, it's ridiculous. You can skip this. It's gonna fall off my list. Next is To Hug a Hulk by Marina Evensong. And this is just a simple one-shot Avengers fic. Not actually taking place. Not well, it is taking place in the MCU, but it's not involving any of the movies or such. It's like in between after the first Avengers movie, where just a couple random things happen, random missions, and it turns out that Hulk becomes a social media like thing and darling, and the people of New York discover Hulk's tender side and want to give him a hug. It's a nice slice of fluff that's just fun to read. Simple story that'll bring a smile to your face. I enjoyed it. It's gonna stay on my list. Next is The Unrelenting Frozen Seas: The Journey by Engineer Forever. So this is his one of his fics where he has Harry Potter jammed into the Percy Jackson universe. The one difference between well, no, that does happen. So let's just go. Here, Engineer Forever likes to make Harry the child of the big three. So previously he made one where it was Zeus's kid. Now this is a femme Harry, and he also likes having femme Harry. This is a female Harry, who is the daughter of Poseidon. And this one, unlike the other one, starts not during her time at Hogwarts, but when she's more of a kid. I believe it starts I think she starts when she's like 9. And instead of meeting up with the regular, the start of canon of Percy Jackson, we're starting like 3 or 4 years earlier. So she actually meets up with Talia, and they get on their journey to go together, and so they befriend each other and go together to get to the camp. So half the story is a bit of that story is that young Talia and Rode, which is Femme Harry's name here, going to the camp. And then afterwards, we get the first 3 years of Hogwarts, all before the first Percy Jackson book. So this one stops at the end of her 3rd year of Hogwarts and going in. This time jump allows us a lot. It's not a time jump, but starting at a different point allows for the impacts of this story and the relationships to have a much more dramatic impact on Rhodes' character. Whereas in the last one, like, I can kind of see if you want to make that kind of a Harry, but like it feels like, okay, this didn't really change anything and everything canon is still going canon. Here, being with Talia and having this and being on the streets has changed how Rhodes works, how Rhodes feels, and changes who she talks to. The relationships she built at Hogwarts are very different from what she would have had in canon, and the relationships she's built at the camp are interesting. I like a lot. It allows for a lot more change, which I enjoy. There is a little bit of annoyance here where Rhodes is like basically dismissive of anyone that's not a demigod or involved in the thing, and it's just like, or is like, oh, you're not there and you don't believe it or follow me exactly and like what I do, everything 100%. Oh, you guys are just an asshole. Like, that's, yes, I mean, they're portraying enough of it that, yeah, it's true, but it's like, it's a bad attitude to have. It's a minor thing that just kind of annoyed me, like tricked me off, but it's not too thing. And hell, this is a Percy Jackson story. There's always going to be some aggravating personality problems that I have to deal with. Usually it's the stupid repetitive arguments that we see with Artemis and Aphrodite in the reaction fix or things like that, but there's always going to be some things that are annoying. But overall, I did still really enjoy this, and I think it's worth checking out. It's going to stay on my list. Alright, and the last story for this video is Waiting for One's Arrival by Rack. This is a Harry Potter Fate Stay Night crossover, where, and what's interesting is this is an Albus Dumbledore POV story. Like, it's all told through his POV, where Harry disappears, when he was a child, so we don't find, and then we get introduced to him during like 1992 with the Chamber of Secrets here, where 2 unexpected guests, Tetsu Tosaka and Ilya Einsburn, just show up and looking for a Philosopher's Stone and what's going on. So the story definitely gets points for novelty for me, because I don't really read Dumbledore focused Dumbledore POV fics, so that's there. And the crossover element is handled very nicely with the kaleidoscope and all that stuff. It's short to the point that still shows, like, even from the third person point of view, some growing relationships between Tetsu Tosaka, who is, character, and Ilya with some of the people in Hogwarts and stuff, while still being like quickly fast paced. I wish there was a bit more of the relationships, but I kind of it works well enough because like the humor is kind of like in that thing. I just found this to be a really quick and fun read. I'd recommend you give it a look, and it's going to stay on my list. So there we have it. 7 more stories down. Fan fiction status time. I've now read 1,092 stories, and 513 of them have managed to stay on my list. So thank you so much for watching. As always, I will leave links to the stories in the description down below, as well as links to the forum where I post this in written form, and my profile and playlist for this videos as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.